Come on in, you guys. Welcome to the show. This is the Arroyo Show. My name is Brandon Arroyo. If it's your first time here, please give it a thumbs up and a subscribe. What a guest we have for you today. You can see her in the brand new Disney Plus series, Big Shots. Please welcome Cricket WAMPLER. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great. How are you doing, Brandon?
Oh, fantastic. It's so good to see you. Congratulations on the show having officially aired. What did you do for the first episode? The pilot is officially 72 hours past release. How'd you watch it?
Thank you, first off. And yes, so I celebrated. I got myself a cake. And my family and I were supposed to stay up and watch it, but I have a family of grandmas who all go to bed at like 9 p.m. So I'm pretty much the only one who actually stayed up to watch it just because I like to keep promises to myself, and it was fun to watch it as everyone was seeing it. But I was watching it with a few people snoring next to me.
And what did you think? I mean, obviously seeing it for the first time now after, did you guys film this during Corona, or was the pilot shot before shutdown?
The pilot we filmed in November of 2019. So honestly, looking back, I'm like, baby, we're all just look a lot younger. It's just so funny to see. But I want to say this is the fourth time maybe I've seen it, but there is just something different when you know the whole world is watching it with you. Because the first time I watched it, I was excited because it was our first time seeing it. Then when we watched it at the premiere, it was on a bigger screen. That was cool. But this time it was like, no, everyone is seeing this if they want to right now, which is just a different feeling together.
It's officially out there. I don't know if you're old enough to know what TGIF was, but back in the late 90s, there was something called TGIF. It was on ABC, and it was the Friday night lineup of television shows that they would release a brand new episode every Friday night. And it was Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Boy Meets World, Family Matters. They would all have a brand new episode back to back to back to back on Friday night. It was called TGIF. Now with Disney Plus, it almost seems like there's a new version of TGIF, because every Friday now there is a new episode of Big Shots, there's a new episode of The Winter Soldier, and there's a new episode of, oh my gosh, The Mighty Ducks Game Changers. So there's 3 of the 4 right there. We just need one more, and you guys are right there in it. To be a part of this brand new push for content that Disney Plus has and new TV shows that are coming out, what's that like? How are you feeling about it?
Oh my gosh, I don't think it could be more exciting. It is so cool, like you said, to be airing. A few people have mentioned that. They're like, I'm already a Mighty Ducks fan. I'm going to add this to my watch list. It's the same type of, people really like their routines, and all the episodes coming out at the same time, I think is cool. When we first auditioned to be on Disney Plus, it wasn't a thing yet. So it was kind of like, oh, Disney's a part of it. That's cool. But I have no idea what this is. Right. So I think that that's been really cool, because we just didn't know what it was. So to now realize what it is as it was coming out, watching some of the other shows come out on it, I think it has just been absolutely so exciting. And just, it's hard to even wrap your head around. I don't know. It's been so much more than I ever thought it would be. It's awesome to have Disney behind you, but it's just, you never know what's going to happen, but it's been so exciting. And
I believe you that your dad was a basketball player as well, correct? He was involved with the whole basketball life. When you started preparing for this role, did you reach out to him at all about, what would a basketball player be thinking in this scenario? Or what was that connection like?
Absolutely. So my dad helped me. My brother helped me. My manager ended up helping me. I have a lot of basketball players around. My cousins play. So yes, I definitely reached out to him. It was a few times I was like, Dad, let's go play. And sometimes he turned into coach mode and was like, we're going to go practice, because we had to, in the audition process towards the end, we did have to play basketball. So I definitely panicked for that. I was practicing even before I knew that was a thing that was going to happen, but I was glad I'd been practicing once I found out that there was actually a step where we had to practice and show what we could do. So I was very glad I'd been on it. But yes, my dad definitely helped me with that.
Well, I guess on the plus side of it, early in this season, it seems like this team is a little bit struggling, as we saw in the pilot. So if you were a little bit still coming along with it, you could probably get away with it at the start of the season.
I think the writers knew what they were doing when they wrote that way. Yes. It definitely helped us to be like, okay, we've got time to get better. You know what I mean? So yes, I definitely think you'll watch us definitely grow and get a little bit better. But the starting point wasn't too bad. We did have some training going into it too that helped with the coordinator, Keela Snowden. So that really helped us. Once we were cast, it helped us all get a little bit more used to playing basketball a lot more regularly.
Well, speaking of coaches and circling back to that little TGIF drop that we had a little earlier on, Full House was also a part of that, and John Stamos was one of the main characters on Full House. What has it been like working with John, and what familiarity did you have with John before this? Because obviously a lot of people know him from his TV shows that he had back in the 90s, but also he's has sort of a revitalization on YouTube and several characters on YouTube. What did you know about John coming into this? And then what was it like working with him on set?
Great question. So I was literally, I think Full House was the first show I've ever watched every single episode of. I have it on box set. I'm pretty much a mega fan. So a side note is if I had auditioned for the show and knew John was on it when I auditioned, we didn't know he was on it. But if I had, I very much doubt that I would be a part of this show because I would have been way too excited and nervous and scared because I'd have been like, me on a screen with John Stamos? No way. It wouldn't happen. So I think that was a blessing in disguise that I had no idea who was going to be playing the coach when I auditioned. And working with him, I mean, all the girls and I say it, he's just like so much fun. He's such a goof. He's just funny. He just sets such an incredible tone for everyone. Everyone's having fun when we're working with him because he's just a fun guy and he keeps it really light. I've never been like, oh no, John's going to be mad at me because I messed up. And it just depends on who you're working with. If there's someone like that where you're like nervous around them, he makes it very relaxed and he's just honestly super fun. Yes. And so involved. He loves chatting. Like we have a giant group chat with our cast and we just are always chatting and it's so nice to have that because you don't always have that. It's really cool.
So I don't know if it was the first scene that you all shot together because a lot of times these can get shot out of sequence, but that first moment that we saw the full team with John, where John is addressing your guys' team sort of standing on the free throw line, what was it like to, whether it was that scene or a different one, to have the first scene where you guys were all together and you saw the cast, or maybe it was even the table read? What is your first memory of everybody coming together and seeing the vision of, okay, so this is what the cast is going to look like when the product is going to air?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I'm trying to think of what my first moment would have been. Well, our first table read was definitely a little bit like that, but we didn't have Miss Yvette with us that day because she was busy and Jesselyn wasn't there yet. So I think there was still a little bit of like puzzle pieces to be like figured out. But yeah, when we filmed, one of our first scenes, I think was a locker room scene. So I remember filming that. I think it was maybe even post-game locker room scene. So I was really glad I didn't have a line that day because it was my first day working with John. And I was like, I'm going to be shaky. Like, I'm so nervous. So we went fine. It was a very fun scene to film. And definitely, I think starting with like a powerful speech that he had, like it again, set a very nice tone. And it just made us all be like, wow, this is, I don't know. Again, John, like I really have only seen him probably in Full House mostly. I watched you know, I've seen him in a couple of things. I watched his pilot or the first season of Godfathered or yeah, that show too. But I think just seeing him in that light, it was so different than the Uncle. I mean, actually, a couple times I get Uncle Jesse vibes because I'll think back to like, you know, when he was, you know, giving speeches to the girls. And I'm like, you know what? There's some resemblance here. He even does some of the same hand motions I noticed. I'm just a creepy stalker at this point. But no, I was like, this is Uncle Jesse vibes.
Have mercy.
Yeah, no, literally. He'll do things that I'm like, that was so Full House. And he's like, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But anyway, yeah. So I think that getting that vibe was really just seeing, you know, we're seeing Holly and we're seeing the whole team there. That really definitely. And then the scene you mentioned where we're all meeting him for the first time, that's where my first line comes in. And I think that was the first line I ever filmed, at least with John. And so I just remember being like so nervous in that scene. And I had to giggle. I giggled originally like 18 times in this scene and they cut it down to just one giggle and then I talk about it. But I think because of that, I was just like always nervous. My laughs were going to sound weird and blah, blah, blah. So it's just like there was so much stress behind it that didn't really need to be there, knowing now that he's so chill and just so much fun to work with.
Well, I mean, your character also with that giggle kind of adds a little bit of comic relief in that moment. So if you had a little bit of tension, you're kind of almost breaking the tension yourself. So it's interesting to hear that you had a little bit of pressure on yourself for, okay, I got to get this laugh right.
Yeah, and it happens so many. I never know what's going to come out of my mouth, especially when it comes to a laugh. Like you just don't know. Sometimes I'm going way high pitched. Sometimes It's just, I don't know. So everyone was laughing at me behind the scenes, but I was like, I never know what's going to come out. So I think there was definitely like, I had a weird pressure because I was like, you don't know what's going to come out. What if it's super strange? And sometimes it was, and we laughed.
So you're also from Ohio. I grew up in Cleveland before moving out to LA as well. So high school sports is a very big deal out here. When you were able to now step into this scene, did it almost feel like filling a part of your life that hadn't been filled just yet from, you know, your high school basketball career to now be able to experience what high school athletics and basketball was like?
That's a really great question. I have to say, yes, I would say, yeah, being on Big Shot, like the team aspect, I was homeschooled my high school years, really from fourth grade on. So I've been homeschooled a lot of my life. And I think I was a dancer, which has some sort of team aspect. So I liked that. And I've always loved that. But I was a runner. I played tennis when I was little. I did play basketball a couple of years. I just, love sports. So I think finally getting that actual team where we're practicing for hours together every day and having that total, it definitely, and also for some reason I like didn't know if I'd ever play high school again. Once that doesn't even make sense. I'm still pretty young, so it was probably going to happen. But having that high school team experience has been so fun and something that just for some reason wasn't in my brain for a role I'd be playing anytime soon. So I'm literally so excited about it. It's been such a blast.
Let's take it back, because you've been acting for a while now, all the way back in 2013, a little title called Crash and Bernstein. What do you think when you look back at your first performances and just, how far you've come to now being a series regular on a show like this? It's kind of like it's such a long journey, now 7-8 years in the making. And what do you remember about your first days on set with Crash and Bernstein?
Okay, great question. So yes, I have been acting, honestly, even like 4 years before that. I think I just did commercials at the beginning. So I've been acting since I was 8 years old.
What was your first commercial? Do you remember?
It was a Sears commercial. It was called Sears Keep Away. And I just ran around in this cute little dress. Yep, it was a fun time.
There it is.
Yes, I was 8 years old for that. And so when I did Crash and Bernstein, I was, about 12 years old. And I'd actually tested for the main role twice and then didn't get it. So I was really bummed, obviously, as you would be at 12, not really understanding the whole process. And then they were auditioning for this little co-star. And I was like, obviously went in for it and ended up booking it. So it was definitely very fun to do. The things I remember, it was such a different, now that I've experienced a bunch of different sets, it was so different than anything I've ever experienced. Looking back, I'm like, it was just interesting. Like, I remember just going into hair and makeup. I had the younger girl on the show's dressing room. I was in her dressing room because she wasn't at work that day. So I had her dressing room as my dressing room. And I just remember it feeling, that set was very interesting, again, compared to any other set I've been on. It wasn't, I wouldn't use the word cold, but like, I feel like I don't even remember talking to people. I don't even remember, I don't remember anything. I think also I was just so shy and so nervous that I don't remember really talking to anyone, but I definitely remember because there's a puppet in that show. So I think dealing with that, and it was going through this time machine in our scene, the puppet was very funny. And I think just remembering that, and I don't know, it was so long ago, definitely doing a lot of takes. And I look back now at that and I'm like, cricket. And I still say this to myself, I'm like, you use so many facial expressions. That's just how I am in real life. But sometimes I'm like, tone it down a bit. Like, it's just so funny to watch 12-year-old me doing what she was doing.
Well, as we begin to wind down the interview, we have something called the Final Five. They're the last 5 questions of the interview, and they are all a snapshot of where you are in your life right now. The first one is, who do you speak with the most each day right now?
Probably my mom or my friend Tiana.
When did you know you wanted to be an actor full-time?
Probably when I was about 8, but I wouldn't have thought that if it wasn't for my siblings acting before me.
What item do you use each day other than your phone?
My gua sha, which is like the face roller.
What is a gua sha? Okay, so what is it? It like rolls on soap or what?
Yeah, so there's like a couple, I don't know if they're all called gua sha, but I do this rolly thing on like my face and neck, and I do that every day. I don't know.
We just entered into a whole new realm of YouTube right here with the facial cleansers. Okay. Where is your dream vacation?
Vacation? I've never been out of the country, so maybe even just somewhere out of the country. Honestly, I really want to go to Canada, but there are lots of places.
And final question, how do you define success?
Happiness, just across the board. I think people who are happy with their lives have the most success you can have, I feel like. It's just, you can't always accomplish it, but I think it's just really important. I just think it's one of the biggest things in this life. I don't think money can measure. I don't think, love and happiness, I think, are just really what's important.